The What to Read Next podcast helps you build a TBR of each your favorite books. In each episode, Lori and Maine interviews authors and book influencers to recommend books they loved for you to pick up today. If you're an avid reader, always looking for your next great read, then the show. Hi, Rachel. Welcome to What to Read Next podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So happy to have you here. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a podcaster, host of Higher Learning. I am a correspondent with Extra TV. I am about to release my second book. Excuse me. Who do I think I am? My first book was a nonfiction book, a book of essays. This is my first fiction novel, hopefully many more. I'm very excited about it. I'm a recovering lawyer. You know, that's what they say. I am a proud Texan, which can go either way these days. And I'm an avid sports fan, particularly for the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh my gosh, I love this. So first we need to talk about the podcast because you're an NFL podcast. So we want our podcast listeners to check out your podcast. So tell us all about it.
Yes, I do two podcasts. First off, I have to say, isn't podcasting the best thing ever? Oh, I love it so much. I never knew that I would. I love it. So I have Higher Learning with Van Lathan, and that is a podcast where we talk about everything from politics to current affairs to sports, entertainment, all of that in between, and how it intersects with Black culture. And then I have another podcast called Morally Corrupt that I do on the Ringer Network, where I have a deep love of Housewives and all things that come on Bravo. And so we get into the nitty gritty of that, talk about the news of the week, and then we recap some of those shows. So I just love it. It's just such a liberating experience to podcast.
It is. I love podcasting for many reasons. One is I love audio. I love the way that you can convey the energy through audio, but also you can build a community, have listeners. You also connect with other people and have interesting conversations. So,
Yes.
Speaking of audio, speaking of a podcast, we got to talk about the Bravo universe, which is your top tier Bravo show.
Okay. I watch every single Housewives franchise.
Yeah.
So if I have to pick a favorite, I mean, Potomac is my favorite, even though this season was my least favorite. But I'm going to go with Potomac. And then I go with Jersey. Jersey is bringing it right now.
Yeah.
And I am loving every single episode. And Jersey just has like a knack for bringing in new women, and they just seamlessly fit in.
Mm-hmm.
Like a deep connection to the women prior. They know how to they're funny, they're witty. They're just they're like the quintessential Housewives every single time they come on. So Potomac, then Jersey.
I love this. Yeah, I started Potomac from the beginning because I took a break from Bravo during 2016, and so I missed it. And so I went to start from the beginning, and it's like such a journey. And I love that a lot of the OGs are still around, which is like you're just like kind of nice. It's just comforting. You're like, oh, you're still here, you know?
Right. I know. I think about that often. I'm like, what would they do if they didn't do this? I think it just becomes a thing. I actually asked Teresa, do you think you'll leave anytime soon? Has it just become too much? We've seen you go through so much with your family. And she said, I started this. I'm going to finish it. And I think that's a lot of the OG mentality, which I appreciate.
That is for sure. So, thank you for indulging me in some Bravo conversations. I don't get to do that often in the podcast. I have that in my personal life, and so love when we can talk about Housewives because it's a great show. It's great TV just to watch.
The gift that keeps giving.
It is. All right. So you're a former attorney. Well, you're an attorney. You went to law school.
Yes.
So I talked to a lot of writers who also were attorney or went to law school and stuff like that. And so how did actually being an attorney help you with writing books, both nonfiction as well as fiction?
Yes. So it doesn't in the sense of the way that lawyers are trained to write. We use this formula called IRAC, issues, rules, application, conclusion. Can't even believe I remember that. And so that's the way you're trained to write in that way. You're trained to always spot the issue and go from there. it stifles your creativity. And so
Mhm.
I don't think the way we are trained to think helps me in real life as far as the jobs that I do and talking with people and asking certain questions, but it doesn't help in this regard of writing and being creative. And that was like one of my biggest complaints is I used to love creative writing in school. I used to dabble in, writing a little poetry that I would never let anybody ever in my life read. But I enjoyed that. And that was a very fun time in my life. And I remember that feeling of just how free and creative I felt when I would explore that. And then you go to law school and you're like, become robotic. So it doesn't help. But I will say, maybe the it has the opposite effect of, because you're trained to think a certain way, you long for the other side of things.
Mhm.
There's this desire to be creative and express yourself in that way. And I think the rebellion in you might help, of not wanting to write in that box. It makes you want to write in a different way.
There we go. I love this. I love the fact that like it allow you to see like, one way of looking at things and then being like, like longing for that creativity to explore and to have that
Yes.
opportunity to just do it, and have that
Yes.
freedom because you were so confined in one way of doing it. And then be like, no, let's throw those rules out and let's start actually putting it all together in a different space.
Yes, it's escapism.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what helped. Maybe it's so far from what we do with law. Maybe that helps.
Yeah. And so you wrote a romance novel. So let's talk about real love. What is the elevator pitch and what led you to write it?
Okay, real love. I'm so obsessed with it. It was an idea that I had when I finally decided that I was going to write a book of essays. I thought
Mhm.
about it for a couple of years. I didn't want to write initially when I came off the show. I just didn't feel like I needed more to talk about. And I'm glad I waited.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I pitched what is now Real Love. That wasn't the title, wasn't the working title at all. Um, but I wanted to, because I constantly think about the moment that I said yes to The Bachelor and
Mhm.
how I was so looking for no's, and how I really, really almost said no. And that yes has changed the entire trajectory of my life in the best way.
Mhm.
I almost didn't live this life. And I think of how I was feeling back in 2016 of being in this dead end relationship, looking for an escape. I was always staring out the window, feeling
Mhm.
like I did everything that I said I was going to do. I was with the guy who checked all the boxes, but I did not feel fulfilled. And I wondered how many other people probably feel that same way and are at that crossroads in that life or know someone who is. And so I wanted to write to that experience. I wanted to explore the life that I almost stayed in. And I'm doing that in this book through Maya, the protagonist in the book, which is loosely, extremely loosely based off me, although there are Easter eggs of my real life within it. But I wanted to explore the what if. And so I thought the fun way to do that was through this moment that I experienced in real life. But instead of saying yes, I say no. And my
Mhm.
friend says yes. So I'm able to see both lives play out and see her, step out on a whim and go against everything that she said she was going to do, because they're very similar, the
Mhm.
characters, Maya and Delilah, see her explore life in that way. But then me doing everything that I said I was going to do. I have this plan. I fit in this box per se, and I'm going to stick this out and see this through. And you
Mhm.
see her struggle with that, and that life plan seems to fall apart. And even in my book of essays, I wrote about my own life plan at particular ages in my life. And it is so different from the life that I'm living now. And I love that. And I think that this book will reach a lot of people and will be relatable, because if you haven't yet, at some point in your life, you're going to come to a crossroads where you're going to have to make a decision about the unknown. And you might be that type A person like a Maya or even a me, who has to know how things are going to go. But at some point, you're going to have to make that decision on faith, on the unknown, trust your gut, be fearless. And you see that happen in this book. And so I think I don't know, it's just very fun to get to explore that. And fiction allows you to do it.
I love the fact, like I read the book and I love the fact it was like this crossroad decision this place where it's like, what if I do this? My life is going to look this way. What if I do this? My life is going to look this other way. And like, there's no right or wrong way to do it. I think it's just like an understanding that you just have to let life unfold and letting go of that type A mentality that I need to know my future. I need to know how I'm going to reach out this stuff and learning how to set boundaries and learn how to set, getting, grow into your own confidence and who you are and your decisions. And that's what growing up looks like. I wish I could
Yes.
tell my younger self, like, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out.
Yes. Yes. And you don't have to do everything that you're told.
No.
That is a truth that Maya figures out later or has to deal with, that I too had to deal with. So relate to her a lot.
Yeah, like learning how to like, I think it's like it's coming to yourself and understanding that your intuition, your deep down wisdom, inner wisdom will know the answers. Like nobody can tell you how you're supposed to live your life. They can give you suggestions, but just because your parents want you to live this way, you can choose not to. And you're gonna be fine no matter what. Like no matter what, you're gonna be fine, you
Yes.
know. So
Yes, you're gonna be okay.
yeah. So
I still have to tell myself that.
thank you for writing the story because I think it's important to look for it, because I think sometimes we look at fiction writing as like examples of like options, when you're in this
Yeah.
crossroad, what can I do? And you can look at like that character and be like, okay, like this is what unravel, it can actually apply to me too.
Absolutely. Yes. I'm so glad you get it.
So Rachel, so let's type some book recommendations. What kind of books do you tend to read?
Not romance novels, to be
That's
very
okay.
honest with you. But so to go back, I used to hate reading, hated
Mhm.
it. I'm a middle child. My older sister loved reading. My younger sister loved reading. I loved to play in like an imagination world. I remember it, maybe up until an unhealthy age, like
Mhm.
play make believe. Now that I'm thinking of it, but now I guess I'm doing that with writing. So it was always there, but I didn't like to read about it. I like to experience it in real life and play it out. I probably should have been an actress. My parents should have probably honed in on that. But I did read like the Goosebumps and the Nancy Drews, and then I stopped reading again, and then I think high school when I really got into creative writing, I started to get back into reading. But I was reading like John Grisham and James Patterson books. That's what Dan Brown. Oh my God, I went through a big Dan Brown phase. That more seeped into college. So those are the type of books that I were more into, except for this book called The Coldest Winter Ever, which I was so into, and I'm still waiting for them to make that into a movie.
Mhm.
But the book that I am enjoying now, and it takes me forever to read a book these days, which is more of a romance novel, women's fiction, is 7 Days in June by Tila.
Oh, so good. So
I know.
good.
I'm so slow. My sister this summer was reading the book and she's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I already finished it. I'm like, okay, well, it takes me a long time.
Yeah, I think that book is just the gold standard of like, any second chance romance, It has
Yeah.
emotions, it has like someone at crossroads, someone who's like, we got a short time period of time and we gotta feel the history. And it's
Yes.
not an easy childhood. There's chronic illness, there's a child who's like precocious, and it's just so good.
Mm-hmm.
Such a good
Mm.
book. So I hope you enjoy it and take your time. There's no rush. There's no
Thank
like you
you.
have to finish by certain time. There's no need for you to compare and despair. Like there's no need for that.
Thank you.
So Rachel, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
If you enjoyed this podcast, feel free to share with friends, subscribe, rate, and review the show. This is the easiest way to support the podcast. For a list of books mentioned and other romance recommendations, please visit whattoreadnextblog.com. Did you know you can purchase audiobooks directly from your favorite local bookstore? With Libro.fm, you can pick up more than 250,000 audiobooks, including bestsellers and recommendations from real booksellers. You'll get the same audiobooks at the same price as the largest audiobook company, you know the name, but you'll be part of a different story, one that supports your local community. If you're new to audiobooks, there's a perfect way to squeeze into more reading into your busy life. Listen with the free Libro.fm app while you do your chores, walk your dog, relax at home. The What to Read Next podcast has a special offer for our listeners. Get 2 audiobooks on Libro FM for the price of 1 with your first month of membership. Use code What to Read Next. This offer is only valid for new members in Canada and the US. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day.